Hello and welcome back to the She is Courageous podcast. This week it's a guest week, and I am delighted to have one of my somebody I've worked with for a long time now. You are probably one of my longest serving clients, which is I'm very proud of that. I'm saying all this, I still haven't told the listeners who you are yet. It's Maya. I have the gorgeous Maya Vertigans with me, founder, CEO. We can never quite decide what to call you, can we? Of Planner B VA Services. Now, there's so much more than that to tell. And as I always say to my guests before we come on and press record, I don't start a podcast by reading a bio. Actually, what I do is I start a podcast by asking my guest to introduce themselves and tell us about them. So, Maya, what I would love you to do before we talk about anything else is to tell the listeners your story. Tell us kind of where it started. I mean, we don't need to go right back into childhood unless you fancy that. But just tell us where your entrepreneurial journey started and how you have kind of made your way to where you are now, and we'll go from there. So, Maya, welcome to the She is Courageous podcast. Please tell us all about you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. It started, where did it start? Well, I've always wanted to have my own business. When I was at school, I used to do Avon. I used to sell Avon in my mum's name because I was too
Oh
young.
my
I
gosh!
don't know if I've ever told you that. I was too young to do it
No!
myself. So I did it. My mum was registered to do Avon and I did it in her name. But then because she had a job,
Avon, those are the days.
I had to pay tax. So because it was under her name, so it was really brutal first introduction to entrepreneurship.
How old were you when you was right? Let's just okay, because we're going to talk about age in a second. We are going to talk about age today, but let's not go there yet. So Avon, I remember doing Avon. My mum did Avon, and I definitely got involved in that too. So I loved a bit of sales, as you can probably imagine. So how old were
I
you
think I must
when
have
you were
been
doing a bit of Avon with your
I
mum?
must have been 14. I mean, my mum had nothing to do with it. She was like,
No.
I don't want to do Avon. I don't have time to do Avon. So I just went and knocked on
But you just
people's
did it under her
yeah,
name.
but I just went and knocked on people's doors.
So,
But she knew, like, obviously, she knew. She
yeah,
was happy for me to do it. And the person who signed me up knew and understood that that's what was happening. But
brilliant. I
yeah,
did not know this.
I just went and knocked on people's doors and was like, "Do you want to buy Avon?"
Brilliant. I absolutely love that. I did not know this. And as I said at the beginning to the listeners, I've worked with Mayor for a while. I think, I thought I knew most of your story. I thought it started after that. That is absolutely brilliant. And as whilst I'm like, oh my gosh, kind of not a surprise to me, if I'm really honest. So
Yeah,
started with Avon.
yeah. And then I think, well, from there, while I was at school, I always like I say, I wanted to have my own business. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but it was school really kind of wanted me to go into university. I was quite academic. I loved school. I absolutely loved school. And they really kind of pushed the university side. Both my parents went to university. So I left and I was like, oh, I'll go to university. I'll do something that I want to do that I think will interest me. But I said at the time to my mum, I said, I'm going to university to kill 4 years of my life, to do this so that everybody's happy that I'm doing it. And then I'm going to have my own business. I
I've already
thought,
got so many questions, but I want you to tell the story before I come back on the
okay.
questions.
I think she thought, well, there's worse things you could be doing to kill 4 years of your life.
No, and she's not wrong. There are definitely worse things you could be doing to kill 4 years, right?
Yes, yes. So I went off. I did sociology at the University of Edinburgh, which was amazing, and such a good life experience. And I really enjoyed that, and it was something that I was really interested in. But then, kind of my final year of university, because we do 4 years in Scotland, so I've been there for 3 years. I'd done the partying, I'd done the university life, and then the final year, there starts to be a lot of pressure on leaving and getting a job. People were applying for like really what felt like really grown up things, like civil service and all these grad schemes and really real jobs. And I kind of thought, if I want to have my own business, I need to start doing something now because otherwise I'm gonna get swept up in this and I'm gonna
Yeah.
feel like I need to apply for one of these things as well that were really difficult to get on. So I I decided to do a sustainable gifting business. So I did customer research while I was at uni, and I decided I was going to sell gift boxes that contained sustainable alternatives to everyday products. So things like your beeswax wraps instead of your cling film, shampoo bars, bamboo toothbrushes, etc. And Edinburgh University actually has really good entrepreneur support for students starting businesses,
Right.
which was amazing. And not every university does, but they ran a kind of business ideas competition, and I entered it, and I came third, and I think I won £200. I still have the certificate at home on my parents' house on their wall. But I was buzzing, and I used that money to buy the first stock for the first few
Oh,
boxes.
bless you.
And then I took pictures of them and put them on Instagram. And Sally, who now works with me as part of the team, I was at university with her. She's a friend from school. She's very creative, and I've never been massively creative. So I remember I went to her
Right.
flat, and we took all these pictures of these boxes together. And then, yeah, put the pictures on Instagram, set up a website. And it was COVID just after. So this was the start of 2020, which was also the year I was due to graduate. So I did graduate, but there was no graduation. And then there was kind of nothing because it was lockdown, which, to be honest, whilst obviously there were a lot of very bad things in that time, for me, it created the space that meant, do you know what, I can do this, I can do it full time, and there's no pressure to do anything else because all of those really impressive grad schemes were pulled. Everything was cancelled and pushed
Yeah.
back to the next year, so nobody had a job, and nobody, there was no pressure. Nobody was expecting me to get a job. I could kind of just do my gifting
Of course.
business, which was brilliant. And I was being paid furlough. I worked in hospitality at Murrayfield while I was at uni, so I was being paid furlough from that because of COVID, which gave me, again, not a lot of money, maybe £100 a month, but that was
But we
fine.
weren't going anywhere. We weren't doing anything. It was COVID.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, I did that, and I was kind of growing that, building that as much as I could, and spending really all of my time on it because I'm a doer and I need to be doing. So it was good for me as well, from my mental well-being, to have something that I was doing. And then it got to maybe the start of 2021. In fact, the end of 2020, and things were starting to open up, and the pressure was starting to come back of you need to get a
Right.
job. Because I wasn't with the gifting business. The penny kind of dropped that really I wanted it to be more affordable to buy the box than it would be to buy everything individually. And for that to be
Yeah.
a reality, I needed scale
Yes.
to make any money from it, really. And to get to a point of scaling, that's a very long journey, and I had to be able to make a living in the meantime. And I kind of had that realization. So I applied actually for a social media internship back in 2020 at a logistics company, which is lorries. I didn't know it's lorries. And on it was £7 an hour, and it was going to be a 45-minute commute each way. And I mean, Shelley, you'll know I hate driving. So that was already, and honestly, I was gutted when I didn't get this internship for £7 an hour. Absolutely
Well,
gutted. But then a few months.
they say certain things happen for a reason.
Definitely, yes. And a few months later, somebody that I'd met through the gifting business was looking for a virtual assistant to come in and help with some of their admin. So I applied for that. They recruited for it almost like a job, really. And I applied for that, and I ended up working for them. And then from there, I just started picking up other clients. It's such a referral based industry, so people would see me working for them and then reach out. And I kind of thought, oh, I'm really organized, and I'd learned a lot of marketing from doing the gifting business. So I kind of started packaging those up, and probably, I don't know, 6 months later, maybe I was almost fully booked, which was amazing. But then it kind of posed the question of I can't do both the gifting business and the virtual assistant business. And in the end, I thought, do you know what, I can do the virtual assistant business, but focusing on helping sustainable and ethical businesses, which was a big part of the purpose behind the gifting business, but without having to pack boxes, which I'll be honest, I never really loved that much. So I was kind of doing all of the things of running businesses that I really enjoyed, the organizing, the behind the scenes stuff, but without the packing the boxes. So I kind of thought this is a win-win here. Um, so yeah, I ended up doing that full time, became fully booked. Probably for about a year, I had worked with a couple of freelancers who were helping me to have the extra capacity because once I became fully booked, it kind of became a bit of a choice, I guess, of actually I can either be fully booked and build a waiting list, or I can really try to grow this and grow team and grow capacity. And I went for the second option. I want to really build something. So then, probably about a year after that, I applied 2023. So maybe a couple of years in, I applied for a Young Edge. So in Scotland, we have really, really good funding for businesses, and Scottish Edge is
Mhm.
like a funding body. Um, but it's run like a competition, so you kind of compete to win funding, I guess. And if you're under 30, there's a kind of a section called Young Edge, and it's grant funding, whereas the main one is part grant, part loan. So I applied for that and I won, I think, 10K grant funding, which to me was like amazing. And it felt like really, it felt like the first time, kind of like a vote of confidence of, do you know what? Up till that point, I guess it kind of felt like I was just putting one foot in front of the other, but you never quite know if you're doing it right. And it felt like, wow, somebody else actually believes in it enough to give me money.
Yeah.
So we,
Well
oh, sorry.
deserved, but I
Yeah,
understand what you're saying.
thank you. So I used that to take on our first kind of in-house employee that paid for them. They were just part-time, that paid for them for 6 months. And then it's kind of grown from there. Sally, who did my photos for the gifting business, now is full-time doing marketing. So she works with our clients that we do marketing for. And then we also do kind of admin PA support and also carbon accounting, which is a new service that we added last year. So there's four of us full time at the moment, and then we're hiring somebody else just now. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind, to be honest.
For anyone that's listening, trying to do the maths, because we've mentioned university in there, Avon at 14. Let's just be clear. Maya, tell the listeners how old you are right now, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I'm 26.
Right. Okay. Now I just want to have a moment on this. You are 26 years of age. You're in your second business, actually. Well, third apparently, because we've got Avon in the mix there too. You're in your second, full business offering. You have a team now of four, and I know you're hiring for your fifth. You know, you're hiring again, and potentially already thinking about the next hire after that.
Yeah.
You've gone through the six-figure barrier. You have done incredibly well. And at just 26, you're such an inspiration. Yes, I know I'm your coach, but I'm your friend as well, I think. And I'm super proud of you, but I sometimes think you forget just how well you've done at 26. So I kind of want to play that back for you and for everyone listening. And I guess there's a couple of reasons, I said earlier, we're going to bring the age piece up because there's a few things that I've written down since you've already started talking. So I think there's some questions I've got around running a business in your 20s, okay? Running a business in your 20s in the 2020s.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's some stuff there, right? But just before I go into that, one of the things that you said, and I know you've said this to me before, when we first met, you told me the story of actually you told me about working at Murrayfield. But you said straight away when you started today, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to run my own business. Where did that come from, do you think? What was it that inside of you, or what was it you thought?
Yeah.
Let's not even talk about whether it is. Okay. But why? Why did you always want to run your own business?
No, because nobody in my family runs their own business. Both my parents have, quite traditional jobs, but jobs that they, were fairly happy in. It wasn't that I grew up thinking, oh, they're miserable. But I think I just thought, I don't know, I don't want that. I don't want to be in that kind of job. And I think growing up, I was always maybe a little bit high maintenance. In that my mum would often say, "Oh, you're so spoilt, Maya." But I think I kind of came to some extent to a point of, well, I like to have my own way. Definitely growing up, I did. And I think I thought, do you know what? I'm going to build a life where I can have that and I can kind of curate it and I don't mind working for it. If I want to do something or achieve something, I'm happy to put the legwork in. Yeah.
I mean, I love the answer. I don't think it matters whether you did or didn't know. I mean, it's an interesting part of the conversation, but equally, you just said there, I wanted to create the life I want to create. And actually, I think that's why most entrepreneurs end up starting their own business. It's just that most, and I don't know, statistically, I don't know this to be correct. Okay. I just want to be really clear on that. Certainly my world and much of my audience, you are, in the younger category of my audience, which thank you. But, a lot of my audience are in that mid range point, the 30 to 50, understandably, because of my age. And actually, most of us have gone through something to realize, actually, I'm not in control of my own life. And I guess that's why I asked the question of you, not in control of my own life, maybe that's a bit dramatic, but so many entrepreneurs, particularly women,
Yeah.
their answer to that is, well, I did years in corporate, or I was in this situation and I needed and I wanted something that gave me the flexibility to X, Y, Z, whatever one's answer is. And I kind of love that you were there earlier than the rest of us, and
Yeah.
that's why I asked the question.
Because I have always been a bit headstrong, but I think I've always also I kind of don't really care what other people are doing or what other people think.
Mm.
So like somebody said to me last week actually at an event, "Oh, somebody who I know has a similar business model to you. This is their name if you want to check them out." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I might." But to be honest, I don't tend to worry too much about what other people do. I very much just live life in my own lane, I think, and I think I always have.
What a great, I mean, and that is a great trait, and it's a skill we need in entrepreneur life, right? In running your own businesses. And I guess that probably in some ways answers the question I've got, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I'm just intrigued, and for anyone listening. So you quite rightly said, and I know in Scotland there is a lot more support for business owners, but one of the things you talked about there is school. Now, still to this day in 2025, school basically prepares children, us, to get a job. That is what, it's still not set up to, and I know there's more these days, and it's a long time since I've been at school,
Yeah.
but fundamentally, the route that we are taken through in the school system is to come out the other side, go to university and or get a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you realized you didn't want to do that. You then went to kill 4 years at
Mm-hmm.
university. And it's interesting because, well, I love the phrasing, but it's interesting because in a similar but different way, I went to school and was trained. I think that's what we are at school. We are trained to get a job. And I didn't go to university. So I also was at a school where we were trained to go to university to then go and get a really good job. And in a year of 98 students, 97 of the students in my year went to university and one went to get a job. That was me. And so I guess my question to you, and clarity to the listeners, I didn't just go to the local, it wasn't a newsagent's job. I went and got a management training scheme. I don't know why I felt I just need to justify that. Just wanted to be clear about what that actually meant. But I went left, everyone went right. Now I guess my question to you was, did you then experience similarly? Now I know it was COVID, but because you then made the decision not to take the route that everybody else was from a university perspective, I know you've just said I don't really care what everyone else thinks, but actually, even just your friends, were they all going, how did you navigate that?
Think Yeah, I think I'm somebody who doesn't have loads of friends, if I'm honest. And I'm very much a quality over quantity person. I have a few really close friends who
Those that are watching on YouTube, I've currently got that are not watching on YouTube, I've got a thumb up in the air because I think that's the right answer. Carry on.
I think so those people were not surprised at all because, you know, they know me and that's what I've always kind of talked about doing. I think wider it was I have friends who have more friends and who are friends with people, still friends with other people from school and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I think it was something that was a talking point, I guess, especially in COVID because there was nothing else to talk about. So I think people did talk. Oh, have you seen Maya's doing this? You know, which I don't know if it bothered me. I guess I wasn't really in the circle, so I kind of just heard it from other people, and I just
Mm.
thought, and I think when you start, there's kind of a, when you start anything, you always go through the "that's so cringy" phase, where people say that it's cringy, because you're not instantly going to be, you know, quote unquote successful.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
you have to
yeah.
go through the phase where you are trying and you're trying things. And I guess, yeah, people probably did criticize, judge, I don't know, say things about it. But I don't know if it really, I can't remember particularly having any thoughts about that. But even now, I know, again, friends that I have that are friends with more people from school, and people will say, "Oh, what's Maya doing? Is Maya still doing this? Is Maya still doing that?" And kind of, yeah, I guess it is a bit more of a talking point. But it's interesting because then when I meet people, so I met a couple of people from school not that long ago, and they're like, "Oh, it's so amazing! Like I see what you're doing," and it's and one person actually a while ago, a few months ago now, messaged me, somebody that I've not seen. I know them from uni, but somebody I've not seen for a while messaged me. "Oh, are you hiring somebody I know is looking for a job?" And I kind of thought, we've not seen each other, you know, we're not really in contact, and you probably were somebody that perhaps had something to say. So it's funny how the narratives change of when you first start, it's
Yeah.
cringy and then it's inspirational.
It's such an interesting one, isn't it? Because even just listening to you talk, and you know, it's not the opposite, but I'm kind of it's reminding me of that experience for me, and it was a different one because everybody went to university. I went and got a job, so I guess for me it was more everyone was out partying and living a very different lifestyle, and I was working my backside off because, as you say, success doesn't come quickly. Um, but I guess I just, as you said, I don't know what I thought at the time. Actually, now I'm like, I don't know what I thought at the time. But what I seem to recall is realizing at a point in time that our paths had suddenly gone in very different directions, and that's continued to be the case for a lot of those relationships, and that's fine. By the way, it's just different, isn't it? It's just an interesting one, and anyway, quality over quantity every day. I'm with you, completely with you there. So, okay, right, the gifting business as well. I mean, I just want to talk about that as well because you have a passion, and that's why Planner B has been very much about ethical businesses. So, again, is that something that's been with you from a younger age? Is that something that was instilled in you? Is that no?
No, when I was at school, I used to think the world revolved around me. 100%. Everybody would tell you the
Your honesty.
same. Like, yeah. And I just thought, if I can't see it, it's not a problem. I was the person, this is awful. I would leave my stuff at McDonald's. I wouldn't put it in the bin because I thought I was creating a job for somebody who then had to put the bag in the bin instead of putting it in myself. Like when I was a teenager, I was awful.
So I don't think that makes you awful. I think that makes you normal. I think that people listening right now, honestly, I think there'll be a number of people listening right now that will be nodding and saying, well, there'll be some that are going, I probably still do that actually. Okay. So I love your honesty there, but I actually think you're giving yourself quite a hard time. I think because actually I think that the fact that at such a young age again, you actually took a stance and said, I want to start a business in this arena. And at this point in time, like 2019, twenty
Yeah.
twenty, this was still a relatively new arena, particularly to try and start a business in. Like, what was the turning point, I guess is the question.
Well, so I mean, my sister, who is younger than me, but has always been, for or certainly as long as I can remember, she's very selfless. She definitely doesn't think the world revolves around her, even growing up, and she has always been very much very aware of the planet. Like I would say that she's a bit of an eco warrior, although I don't know if she would agree with that label. But when she was at school, she started the plastic free committee because she was,
Wow.
yeah, because she was unhappy with all the plastic in the canteen, and she was like, enough is enough. And they had a notice board, they had everything. And but so I think gradually over time, I kind of, because I'd seen it through her.
Yep.
And then there was when I was at university, it was around the time of Blue Planet, and people generally were
Right.
just becoming more and more aware. And I mean, Edinburgh's quite a political city. There's quite a lot of students and
Mm,
young people, so there's a lot of protest. It was around the time of the marches, and Greta Thunberg and that kind of thing. And I think I saw as well at Murrayfield, I saw a lot of the waste. Like,
right.
I saw it firsthand actually. Previously I thought, oh, what's this one plastic cup going to do in the grand scheme of things? But actually, I saw those thousands of plastic cups
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
impact that they all had combined. And I think then that was when I kind of thought, right, all of that combined, if I'm going to start my own business, I do not want to be adding to this problem.
I mean, and look, again, I just think it's a really interesting because I love how you have made that very clearly. We talk about niching all the time, don't we? Right? People go on about you got to have a niche, you got to know your niche, and that's kind of yours. And so I think people get very confused about niching as well. But what you're really clear about is, look, actually we've got quite a broad spectrum of services, but actually my niche is I really want to work with these people because this is a really core value for me, and I want to support that. I love it. I absolutely love it. So one of the things that I was kind of pondering on before we press record was, and I have asked you, and thank you for being okay with me saying, so how old are you, Maya? I didn't say it like that, but but I wanted to get that across for two reasons. First of all, the absolute awe of what you've achieved at 26 years of age. But also, I was thinking before we came on together about, we see a lot of messaging, and I share a lot of the messaging around, it's not too late, you're not too old. As someone that's heading for 50 and didn't start her business till 42, I'm the other side of this coin, talking very much about, what you can make a change, you can do something fundamentally different at any point. And I know you agree and believe in that. And I think we have a set of challenges when we do something like that in the latter state. No, I'm not in the latter stages, the middle stages. I'm definitely not in latter stages of life, Maya. Middle stages of life. What I would love to ask you is not even what do you think, because it's what you know. What are the challenges? People can list the challenges of being an older entrepreneur. What are the challenges of being a younger entrepreneur in 2025?
There's definitely a few. Um, I mean, I think often when I go to events and things, maybe not so much now as when I used to, but often I am the youngest, often by quite some margin.
Mm,
And I think that can make it difficult at events because I can feel like I don't have as much in common with people. Like I've been in conversations where people have been talking about taking the Tesla to pick the kids up from golf, and I'm like, yeah, I cannot relate to that one. And things like that. It's just we're at a different stage in life, and I think that some of that is definitely can be in my head of I think I don't fit in here, but some of it can be as well. I don't know. Sometimes people can be maybe a little bit patronizing, or they kind of assume that you just don't know anything,
mm, mm.
and then that's really difficult because then you're kind of put in this box, and and then I just feel really uncomfortable because I'm not the kind of person to sort of call that out. Although I have started
Yeah.
calling out now, and my new little thing that I do is when people ask me, because so when people ask me how old I am at events, so like if I've just met them, sometimes if I know people and it like makes sense in conversation, absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with telling people how old I am. But if I just met somebody and then so often it happens, usually women to be fair, and they just say, how old are you? I hope you don't mind me asking, but how old are you? And now I've started this thing where I go, oh, I'm 26. How old are you?
Do you know what? I'm
Because,
actually sitting here with my mouth agape because, as someone who's in her 40s, no one's ever asked me how old
no,
I
and
am.
they're always
And they
really
wouldn't
embarrassed
dare.
when then they have to tell me that they're, I don't know,
Well,
however old.
I mean, let's call it what it is. That is essentially ageism, right? We think that, well, no one has ever asked me how old I am.
Yeah.
So let me just be really clear about what I'm doing here. I'm making assumption. My assumption here is that people are looking at you, and of course, you look younger, and good for you, girl, because I wish I did. But that can one can assume that one can only assume that's what's driving the question.
Yeah.
That's astounding to me. That yeah,
Yeah, and but I feel now I've got my now to be honest, I quite enjoy it when I ask them how old they are because I feel like it's a
you
polite
do.
way of sort of highlighting. It's
Doesn't matter.
and it initially, like when I first started going to events, it did kind of catch me because it almost feels like they're pointing out that I don't fit in by like
Mm.
highlighting that I'm a point of difference from everybody else. Whereas now, like I say, I just ask how they are and it's fine. But yeah, so it can be from that side, I think, can be challenging. I think I was thinking about this as well in advance of our conversation, and I was thinking, I think I put a lot of my self-worth in the business. And I think maybe partly some of that is just a thing that people do when they start businesses, but also because I'm young, I don't have kids. I don't own my own house. I don't have all those other things that people maybe have in their lives that they also get self-worth from. It's like my main thing, and it really, because I've been building it in my 20s, it is my identity. If I meet people from school, it's the thing that they will ask me about. They don't know anything else about me. So I think, and because of the highs and lows, when things go wrong, that can be really hard because it feels like it's the business is me. We are one and the same. But then I was also thinking, and I guess in a way, it is a big part of how I've got to here in that I have nothing to lose. I have no responsibilities. I don't own my own house. I don't have kids. I have nobody depends on me for anything. So I really have nothing to lose, and I can go all in and, and learn the lessons, and what will be will be.
And that is an incredible reframe because it's really interesting hearing you talk about so before kind of the go all in, talking about like the identity piece. I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think, you said earlier on, you're not afraid of hard work. We can't be afraid of hard work when we run our own businesses, but you are an absolute hard worker. You are a get stuck in. I know that about you. It's why you are as successful and the business is as successful as it is. But it can also be when we are those kind of people, and I say we because there's a reason that we've connected, Maya. We both know it. I'm very much action driven. I'm a doer too. We can place a lot of our identity, our self-worth in our businesses, and we're the face of our businesses as entrepreneurs. That I think that is exacerbated. I think, as someone that did 25 years in the corporate space, I would have said very similarly, because I went into the corporate world at such a young age. That absolutely happened for me. My corporate role, my rapid climbing of the ladder became my identity. And so I think a lot of people listening will be able to relate to that. But I actually love how you have flipped that and said, but on the other hand, and I know that you're not, I want to be really clear. I know you're not saying that with any flippancy. You're not saying, it doesn't matter, because that's not a spoilt mayor piece. That is a genuine, actually, I don't have children. I don't have my own home at the moment. I'm not, the risk is slightly less on a more practical level,
Yeah,
let's say.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I
the
can
worst
totally
that
see
can
that
happen
reframe.
isn't that bad. Like, and I can always go and get a job. I have my degree from uni as my backup plan, and so there is nothing. Whereas I appreciate if you start businesses when you already have kids or when you are tied down with a mortgage and you have all these commitments, there's just so much more to think about from that practical side.
Yeah. Yeah. What's really important about that conversation is, or this whole conversation is, there's no right or wrong here. There's not it's easier to start a business if you literally start it from the minute you step out of school, university, or it's not easier. It's not if you don't have any corporate experience, you can't succeed.
Yeah.
If you do have corporate experience, you've got, there is no right or wrongs here at all. It's about understanding your journey and actually what both sides of that are, and that's what you've just described. On the one hand, this can be challenging. On the other hand, it's not challenging because I was just sitting here thinking as well, have you ever felt that not having had a inverted commas job
Mhm.
has not held you back? That's completely the wrong words, but has been a hindrance in any way? Or conversely, do you think that's been a good thing for you?
do think to some extent, especially partly the never having, I would call it a real job in inverted
Yes, you
commas.
used those words earlier, actually, and I probably should have said that. So we both just, again, if you're not watching on YouTube, Maya and I are both doing the bunny quotes with our fingers while we're saying the word job.
Yeah, I think it's partly being young as well, but I do think, especially when I started, I probably didn't have loads of credibility because I was so young and I didn't have the experience and I had to really, really work to get that. But then, over time you build that and whereas I do think, oh, if I'd had some kind of corporate experience, that probably would have helped from a credibility point of view, and maybe also from a mindset point of view of I would have felt like I had more credibility.
Well, that's what so unsurprising. I've just written down on my piece of paper while we're talking, because that's what I'm wondering, as in the mindset piece there. Because actually, when anyone starts anything new, do they have credibility? Like, did I have any credibility when I first started a coaching business just because I'd spent 25 years in a corporate world running other people? That was totally different. I wasn't, I wonder how much of that is our own mindset.
Then part of
Yeah.
me also thinks I I just do things the way that I think makes sense and the way that I think is best. And obviously I ask for advice and I get help from the right people, but
Mm.
I have no idea. I have no point of reference in terms of from corporates or from other jobs because I haven't had them. So I think sometimes that can be a weakness because I sometimes feel I just don't know. I don't even have a starting point. I don't know how to address this. But other times it means we just do things our own weird and wacky way, but it works for us because we've built it based on what we need as a solution to a problem rather than just what other people do.
If it doesn't, you learn and you just do something differently, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. I mean, like, as I'm sitting here with you talking, whenever I do these podcasts, when I do my own or with guests, I'm thinking and learning as we go. And the biggest takeaway for me right now is that there is no right or wrong answer. Actually, you can take it. There's a sweet spot to everything, right? There are pros to having had a corporate role beforehand. There are cons to having had a corporate role. There are pros to having gone for it and gone straight into it and not knowing what's right, wrong, or indifferent. And there are cons to not know. And you choose which you let propel you or hold you back.
Yeah. No,
And you
definitely.
choose not to let that hold you back. You choose to go, do you know what? I don't know because I've got no point of reference. But if I give this a go, I've got a point of reference for next time,
Yeah.
and it will be what it will be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's an incredible skill, and a real strength as well.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, on the bad days, sometimes I think, what am I doing? I'm a child. I'm too young for this.
I know, Mayor, I'm your coach.
And
I'm
I just
joking.
think this is too much responsibility and too much pressure. So you get that too. But then I
But as a 49-year-old business owner, I get that. And then I'm like, I'm 49, I should know, I should have my shit sorted. But, so aren't we all experiencing these things, but in our own way? I guess that's the point here, isn't it? It really is. Um, just again, and forgive me for making it about the age piece. It's not about the age, right? It's about just different experiences. And you have a team of 4 and are looking to bring in your next person, and the team's grown quickly as well.
yeah.
How have you found going from right? This isn't it. Actually, let's be really clear. This isn't about age. This is about fundamentally the business growing. And one of the biggest challenges I see for business owners is when we move through that stage of being able to do it all ourselves, and the business is growing and we're making more money, to suddenly realizing, if I really want to get to the next level, if I really want to make more money, that's what business is for, I'm going to need to bring people in. How have you found that transition, that shift? And I don't just mean, like, I guess at the beginning, but actually you've gone from you plus one, Sally, you plus two plus
Yeah.
yeah. How have you found that?
Hard. I found it really hard. And I think partly maybe the lack of experience is more of a negative here, in that from the point of view of, I guess, leading a team, I haven't got a whole lot of reference points. of people that I can think of. Oh, they were a great boss, they were a poor boss. I
Right.
mean, in hospitality, I had bosses, but it's kind of completely different. And I was young, and it was, yeah, it's just completely different. So I think that's been hard in terms of finding who I am and who and how I want to lead and how I want that to be and what kind of leader I want to be. I'm not the loudest person in the room. I'm never going to be the loudest person in the room. And I guess part of me probably thought leaders are loud and they're those people, the really, really loud, really charismatic people that can inspire everybody, and that's not necessarily me, but that's not the way that I lead. I'm definitely more of a quiet leader who wants to motivate and inspire people, but is also very happy for people to take responsibility and to, you know, kind of crack on with things and have that ownership and for themselves, and not, rather than, I'm definitely not a micromanager.
Yeah.
But I think that's been a kind of a learning and something I'm still learning. I think I'm still learning what my role is in the business as the business grows and develops. I do think it the pressure of having a team is, I think, unless you have your own business and you have your own team and you're responsible for paying people's mortgages, it's just a whole other element that I don't know if you can fully understand the pressure that that is, to just know that ultimately it's all on you. I definitely feel that. I feel this is a lot. And sometimes that can just feel too much.
Look, as someone who led big teams for a really long time, but it wasn't my bank account. It wasn't, it was not, I took it very seriously, but it wasn't my business. It is a very different ball game when you are literally responsible for, like you say,
Yeah.
that person's mortgage. And I think it's just really interesting to hear you talk really honestly about, okay, no point of reference. And I hadn't really thought about that part. Like, it's not about whether you have or haven't had experience yourself of running a team, because we've all got to start somewhere. But to your point, having not been exposed to other people and how they do it, like sometimes I say to people, it doesn't matter if you've never had a good boss, just think about like the worst experiences and don't do that. That's a good starting point. So I can totally see how that's been, challenge, but you've navigated it brilliantly. But I think the other part that's really important there, and you said, is actually the change in your role, and the piece for everybody is the role just continues to change, doesn't it? As the business grows and more people come in, every time you kind of think, right, I've got this lick now, I know where I fit and what I want then, and then someone else comes in and we have to, rejig again. And that's something I see for so many people, that's the hardest part, because we have to go from being the one that does everything to being the person that ensures that everybody else knows what they need to do to keep the business going, but also still having more of a handle on than anyone that's ever had a paid role and had big teams. It's still totally different when you are a business owner, because you've always got to be ready to put the hat back on,
Yeah.
whatever hat is needed as well.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, it
Yeah.
is so rewarding as well. I feel like that was maybe quite a negative answer that I gave. Although it's true, but
It
it
was
is so
honest about the
rewarding.
challenges. I know that. I think, to be fair, my question was, what were the challenges? So it's important. I know that it's very rewarding too. And together as a team, that's how you've managed to grow the business even further, which is a credit to every single one of you and to you as leader. And I guess I just want to call out as well what you talked about there, which is that quiet leadership piece, that piece in your mind, leaders were loud, but actually you are getting more and more comfortable with your leadership style. And to anyone listening, just remember, you will find your own way to lead your team in your business. And you won't get it right all the time. No one ever does. And even when you think you've got it knocked, you'll still make a mistake somehow. But, you know, every single one of us will lead differently, and fundamentally we need to, because I've worked in businesses as well where there's a type of leader, and that's no good for a business. That's no good for the world. So I think that's really important that you called that out, that realization of the leader that you are. And I'm then calling out, and it's working, Maya, because look at the success the business is achieving.
Yeah. And I think it is rewarding as well in having a team, in that you can make such an impact on them and have such a positive impact,
Yeah.
but also the business can have a bigger impact. Like, we've done a lot more this year. We've had, an amazing year for growth, which has been incredible, but it's also meant we've been, and our team has grown, but it's also meant we've been able to do a lot more to give back, to give to
Yeah.
charities, to sponsor projects. And that's only possible because of the team as well. And for
Yeah.
me, that's one
Yeah.
of the best bits is being able to do that. But it's also that is a team effort. If it was just me on my own working as a
You just
freelancer,
couldn't.
and that's absolutely fine. And I'm sure that that would be a fine way to run the business, but I wouldn't be able to create that impact.
Yeah, I totally, I absolutely agree and hear what you're saying. And, often when I talk with people about money mindset and there's, that guilt that's attached to wanting to earn more money, but more money enables you to have more impact in whatever way you want to. More money enables you to grow the team, to make more money, to impact more people. So absolutely love that reframe in terms of impact too. So, well done. I'm doing a great job. Okay. So Maya, who's sitting here in 2025, if she could go back and talk to Maya in 2018, 2019, before she started the gifting business,
Yeah.
what would she say to her, knowing all that she knows now?
Oh, I don't know. I think I would just say you are capable of more than you think, and you are more resilient than you think. So believe in yourself because you can do it. And yeah, to believe that you can and know that you can and know that actually you are much more you are capable of more than you ever think, and then that you give yourself credit for. Maybe I think there's not a lot that I would change really about what I've done, because I've just things that have gone badly, I've learned so much from them. And I'm really somebody who tries not to have regrets. Like there's nothing really that I would change, so I wouldn't go back and tell myself to do something differently or be something different. But and I think stick to your guns. So many people love to give you advice when you're young, and it's so well meaning. It's so well meaning, but people will give you all kinds of advice, and a lot of the time it contradicts each other. So I think stick to your guns and kind of trust yourself and what you believe and what you think is right, and go with your own gut and not be too swayed by everybody else and all of the
I love
advice
that.
that people give you.
Do you know, that's just made me think of another question, which is just completely left field, but it's interesting because you said, so many people want to give you advice because you're young. And I think that probably is true. I think people always want to give advice, but I can absolutely imagine how more would want to give you advice because you're younger. What's the best piece of advice you've received?
To me recently, and guess this is quite context specific, but somebody said to me recently, or maybe I heard it on a podcast, but basically that if you want to grow, you have to first create the space to grow into. You can't grow and then create the space. And I guess from
Mhm.
my in terms of my business, that would be that we have to have the capacity before we can grow the business from the client
Yeah,
side. And it's so easy to fall into, oh, but we don't want to bring in new team unless we've got the client work. But this is kind of, you have to have that space to grow and almost create that capacity before you can fill it. And I think, it was a podcast, and they said something along the lines of, if your target is to make £1 million in a year, I think it was a fashion brand actually on this podcast. If your target's to make £1 million in a year, but you only have £500,000 worth of clothes, you're only going to make £500,000 because people can't buy what you don't have. And I thought, yes, that really, for where I'm at in my business and where I'm at in my life, that's really resonated and kind of been something I've been
oh
pondering.
yes. Yeah, I love that. Do you know, it's interesting because it's made me think of something I heard on a podcast. I love an analogy, Maya. So this one was in an analogy sense, but it's the exact same piece of advice that was saying, with a plant, you don't wait for a plant's roots to grow so big that they crack the pot before you replant it. What you do is you move it and replant it in order for it to get bigger. And I guess it's that, isn't it? Like you said, I think, and to anyone listening, we've all done this, by the way. We have all done that. Like, I want to grow, but I don't feel like I'm in a place where I can I can bring in the next member of the team or invest in that thing, which I know will give me the growth. I need to, it's that whole, it's the be do have. We spend too much time saying when then I'll, rather than, well, if I do this now, then I'll be able to get to that even quicker. But that means perhaps taking a bit of a risk,
Yeah.
whether that's a risk in belief in ourselves or a more practical risk. I love the example of the fashion brand. If you've only got £500,000 worth of stock, you can only take, so true, right?
Yeah.
One for everybody that, isn't everyone's goal to grow? So maybe the question to everybody right now, as per Maya's piece of advice, is have you got capacity to grow? Are you actually in a position where you are ready for the growth that you seek?
Yeah.
Gosh, that feels like a moment. That's a mic drop moment. That is probably a great place to wrap up. So I guess the final question is, if I were to say I'm speaking to Maya. If I were to say to you, I don't know why I suddenly moved into third person there, Maya. What's the next big goal for Planner BVA?
I think we're definitely growing. We've had a really, like as I said, a really busy year, which is amazing. And I think it's building on that. We're in like a really good momentum just now, and it's continuing to build on that, and hopefully continue to grow and also grow the impact that we can have in 2026. I want us to become a B Corp, and that's partly possible from us growing the teams. Then we've got the capacity to do that as well. So yeah, I want to just keep building really and keep growing in terms of the business, but yeah, also in terms of that impact side as well.
Did you ever imagine that you'd be sat at 26 years of age? And I know you said I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So this is a slightly different question. But did you imagine that you'd be here at 26 with a team of five, a six-figure business? Well, if the answer is yes, that's great. I guess that's my point. Is this what you imagined? Are you where you imagined you wanted to be?
I think, like, for example, 16-year-old Maya would definitely have told you yes, because like I was invincible, and whether or not I actually believed it, I don't know. I think I'd have very confidently told you, but I don't know. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I guess I wanted to have my own business, but I didn't know in what. And I guess that's kind of uncertainty. I do think, if I look back, I think 16-year-old Maya would be proud if I could meet her now and tell her, actually, I'm doing it. And I didn't, and it would have been so easy to give up and to do a do a real job,
Yes.
um, or a grad scheme, or and there's nothing wrong with doing that, but that was never what I wanted to do.
No.
And so I
No.
think 16-year-old Maya would be proud that I have stuck to my guns, and I am pursuing what I always wanted to do, and like I'm doing it. Sometimes I think, wow, I'm actually doing it. This business thing, I'm doing it.
I love that. This business thing. You are absolutely doing it, and not just doing it, but smashing it. Maya, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You are, and I know one of the things I actually want to just kind of share. I know that one of the things you started to do in the last year is go into schools, and you've been given the opportunity to go and talk about your journey, your business, and given that as we said halfway through, schools generally speaking are still very geared up to help children, train them to get a job,
Yeah.
right? And actually what you've always been very passionate about it. I know it's something you're starting to dip your toes into, and I think there could be more where that comes from. I love that you get to do that, and you are not only an inspiration to me, as I said, and I watch you, I see what you get up to. I know so many around me see the same, and we kind of go, God, she's 26 and here I am. I can't imagine. So it's interesting because I can't imagine 26-year-old Shelley doing what you do. And yet at 26, I was running other people's businesses for them, but that was a very different kettle of fish. But I also love that you are going and inspiring the next generation and showing what is possible. So thank you for doing that for the next generation. Thank you for coming into the She is Courageous podcast and sharing your story with us. Where is the best place for people to find you if they want to come and connect, find out more about how to work with you, find out more about your story, your journey?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Maya Vertigans. I think I'm the only Maya Vertigans, so you should find me. Or Planner BVA on Instagram, on Facebook, and plannerbva.co.uk is our website as well. But LinkedIn's where I'm most active, so if you are on there, I would definitely love to connect over on LinkedIn.
We will put all of the links in the show notes anyway. So if LinkedIn is your platform of choice, like Maya's is, go find her there. But we will put in the other links as well if you are a bit of a fan on the other platforms. Once again, I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, for being so open and honest, and for being a fabulous guest on the She is Courageous podcast. Thank you, Maya.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.